Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to Road to Becoming a Programmer, where we take you, the viewer, and make you a full-on programmer. So in today's video, I'm gonna be, making a basic tutorial for CSS. I'm not gonna be using any of the, more complicated terms that you hear in a lot of other videos. It's gonna be a pretty basic, beginner-friendly video. So here's what you need before we get started. You need to download Visual Studio Code right here. I'll leave a link for this in the description below, of course. I shall leave a link for this in all my videos. But after download that and install it, and it's super easy to install, by the way, you're gonna go ahead and watch this video right here. This video, I'm gonna leave this video in the card as well. This video basically goes over all the important extensions that we need to install in Visual Studio Code to write code the same way that you see me writing in the video that you're gonna watch, right? So make sure to install all the extensions you see in this video that I'm using myself. After that, you're gonna need HTML, of course. Now, if you don't know any HTML whatsoever, I don't know how you're watching a CSS video, but anyways, you can just come here to my channel, go to the playlist, excuse me, and then go to the web development playlist and watch all my HTML videos and learn
Okay, so
how to
let me
code.
paint you a picture.
And if anything in this video did end up being helpful, I hope you consider liking the video, subscribing for more content, and sharing the video with other people. And with that said, let's get right into it. Okay, so here we are on my desktop right now. I'm just gonna go ahead and open up our Visual Studio Code right here. You can just search Visual Studio Code, find it and open it. Wait for it to load, of course. And what you want to do is we want to make a brand new folder, and we want to put our HTML and our CSS file inside of our folder. But before we do that, I'm just gonna close my previous style CSS I had opened. So yeah, we're gonna make our folder on my desktop. Of course, you can make it wherever you want on your PC. I'm just gonna use my own desktop. And we're just gonna make a new folder and we're gonna call it something like CSS project. So once we have our folder ready, we're just gonna select our folder. And now this folder is gonna be inside of our Visual Studio Explorer. So once we have it there, we can see it's completely empty. We're gonna add our two files. First one is gonna be our HTML page. We're gonna call it something like index.html. Of course, you don't have to call it like this. You could call it, hello world HTML, hello world.html, or anything else you want, as long as you keep the .html part. And then we're gonna choose make a style.css. So what we want to do is, we want to make our basic HTML structure, our HTML head, body, all that stuff, all that good stuff. Once we've done that, we're gonna remove our title and add our own title to our HTML. Something like hello world, because why not, I guess. And so we want to link our CSS page to our HTML page. Now, how do we do that? We use link. It's just that simple. We use the href attribute to link to our style.css. Now, since these two are styling is in the same folder as our HTML, we can just go style.css and find it. And now our style.css is linked to our HTML page. But since it's empty, so it doesn't really do anything, right? But it is technically working. Our style.css is linked to our HTML page, but it just doesn't have any content inside of it. So there is no styling going on. So we're just going to go ahead and open our HTML page with our h1, which has hello world written inside of it. I'm going to wait for it to load. And so here we are. We have our hello world and it's working just fine. Now, if you pay attention, you can see that there's some space that's keeping from our hello world from reaching the top of the page. Now, we can actually remove that with CSS, and here's how. We just put a star, curly braces, and then we're gonna use margin. Now, if you don't know what margin is, don't worry about it right now. I'm gonna talk about margin later on in the video. Just keep watching. But basically, you can just copy this code that you're watching on your screen right now if you want to remove that extra space from your web page by using style.css, by using CSS. So now you can see it's completely gone, and our hello world has reached the top of our page. So now let's add some, more interesting styling. Let's just say that. So we have our hello world inside of our h1. So the way we use the way we use CSS is that we first of all select what we want to add styling to our h1 in this case. Then we go curly braces, and then we choose what attributes we want to add to that. What sort of styling we want to add to that element in this case. Yeah. So we added color red to our h1, which our h1 has the text hello world inside of it. And we're going to make another heading, our second heading, and it's going to be an H2, and we're going to call it something like I love CSS. Once we've done that, excuse me, yeah, I love CSS. Once we've done that, we're going to select our H2, and again, curly braces. We're going to add the color. This time, we're going to add the color, that's a little bit something like white smoke, right? Now, white smoke is it's kind of like white. So basically, if we go and see, it's very hard to see because the background color is similar to our the color we chose. So we can change our background color as well. We can just go background color and change that to something like black. So now if we go back, we can see that it's much easier to see our I love CSS text. Okay, so I just created a brand new HTML page as well as a brand new CSS page, and I just put some random gibberish text inside of it, and we linked our CSS page to our HTML page. And don't worry about this paragraph selection for now. So what we did is that we added the H1 first heading, and then we added some random gibberish text inside of it. So this is called lorem ipsum. If you don't know what it is, you can just Google lorem ipsum. And there are sites that can give you just generate random gibberish text that you can use in your projects. So this way you don't have to actually like type this stuff, and you can just generate them on the bottom of the screen. But we're just going to close that for now. So here we have our headings and our random text paragraphs inside of them. This is our first paragraph inside of comes after our first H3, our first heading, or I guess our setting heading, since our H1 is our first heading. So I'm just gonna go ahead and remove that and say paragraph, P for paragraph, text align, and choose left. So what this does is that it basically makes it where all of our paragraphs are aligned to the right side of the screen. So if you use, let's say Word or PowerPoint or, just any other software that lets you change the properties of text on your screen, you know how this works. You can just go text align to left, right, or center like that. And there are other options as well. But for now, we're just going to be using the left, right, and center. So we select our H3. That means all of our H3s are going to be changed to the right side of the screen. We say our H3s, and then we go text align, and then we go right. Right, we give it a value of right. So that means all of our H3s, which we have 3 of them, are going to be changed to the right side of the screen. And we can do the same thing for center to change them to the center of the screen. So it looks a little bit better. But let's say we want to change our big heading on the top of the screen as well. We want to change that to text align center, so that's on the center of the screen as well. And it looks much better than it used to when we started writing code for this. So yeah, we have these right here. Now let's do something a little bit more interesting. So I'm going to be talking about classes now. So what classes are is they're basically a way to select our tags. So for example, let's say I want to pick this very first H3 and I want to give it a class, and let's say we can be whatever I want. I'm just going to give it the class value of left, right? And I'm going to do the same thing for our other H3s as well. So what we're doing here is that we're saying that this particular H3, this particular heading is going to have a class, and it's going to be having a value, and that value is going to be whatever you want it to be, right? The value isn't that relevant. All that matters is that we just remember what we use, what value is we use for that class, right? So later on we can use our CSS, our styling to select that class, and when we do select that class, we are selecting the tag that has that class. So for example, if I go dot left, and you have to do this dot if you're using a class, and then go text align, what this means that I'm using this CSS to style my class that has the value left. And what class has the value left? The very first H3, right? So I'm just going to remove that part, so it doesn't matter anymore. I'm just going to go ahead and check our site and see how that's worked. Let's save these. So we can see that we changed our first heading to the left side of the screen, but the other H3s are still where they used to be, right? But we can do the exact same thing for those as well. You can go dots, and remember you have to put dots before using a class, right? Dot center, so we're using our second heading this time, and we're going to go text align center to move to the center of the screen. Of course, it used to be on the center because all of our H3s are on center, right? Now pay attention to something. On the top of the screen, you can see that our h3 says text align center. That means all of our h3s are going to be changed to center. But our first h3 and our third h3 aren't doing that. One of them was on the left and one of them was on the right. Now, why is that? Well, here's the thing. When you're using classes, they take priority over your normal selections, right? So if you're using a class to refer to an HTML tag, that means that it's going to take higher priority to, as if you were just saying h3 or p for paragraph. But you can take this another step further and use IDs. Now IDs are kind of like classes, except they even have priority over classes. So for example, we can call this first, ID first, give our div the ID first. That means that if you go first, and we have to use that before typing your ID. Go first, and then we go. So that greater than sign, it means that basically whatever we're doing and whatever we put afterwards is going to be directly below that. So for example, we have our h3 and our paragraph set directly after our greater than equal or greater than sign. So what this means is that basically let's go ahead and select all the h3s and all the paragraphs, which there's only one of them in this example, that are below our ID, our first ID. And we can do the same thing for our second and third ID. We can just create those, put them inside of a div like this. So IDs are kind of similar to classes, and you should use classes more than IDs. But if you want to make it like this, you can make it happen. And again, if you pay attention, we didn't actually delete our class code. That's still there, right? But because we put our IDs inside of our CSS, they're the ones that are being used. The styling for those that are the ones that are being used for our web page. Okay, so I just decided to add some styling to our text right here in our previous page. So we can see that it looks a little bit different. I'm just going to go over and some of the changes that I've made. So first of all, we added a background color to our body, and then we started to add the color text to our h1. That means the text inside of our h1 is now gonna be color white. And then we use our IDs to give our divs the color aqua. So yeah, pretty simple stuff. Just make our site look a little bit better, look a little bit less dead. But anyways, so here's what I want to talk about for now. I want to talk about paddings and margin. First of all, let's talk about padding. So what padding does is that basically it makes it where we can put some space between where our text is and where it can be moved inside of, right? So for example, our text inside of our div, which has the color aqua, right? So if you add padding 10, we can make it where we can put some distance between the border of our div and our text, right? So for example, let's change that to padding left. So this is we only add a padding to the left side. Now as you can see, there's some space between the left of our text and the left side of our div. And we can do the same thing for right as well, right, top, bottom, or if you want to do it for all of them, just go with padding. If you want to just do it for one part or two part or three part, you can do it like this. You can go padding left, padding right, padding top, padding bottom, stuff like that. And yeah, so that's it for padding. Pretty simple. Padding just basically generates some space between where our text can be placed inside of the border of where our text can be placed inside of, in this case, our div and our actual text, right? Margin is kind of similar, except it's going to put distance between where our text can be placed inside of our div and everything else that's around it. So for example, we put margin 10 pixels. You can see that there's a space between the edge of our screen and our div that wasn't there before. You can make it a little margin of 3, change that, and you can make it like margin 10 again, which looks much better. And you do want some margin just and padding, just so your text it doesn't look messy like it used to. It looks much better now. I would have added some padding for the top as well in this case, but anyway, it doesn't matter that much. Basically, I wanted to show you how paddings and margin work. Now we're gonna add some border to our divs, or by using our ID, and we're gonna go border 1 pixel. We're gonna say what's gonna be the height of our div, and then we're gonna say what color it's gonna be, and then what type it's gonna be. Sorry, what type it's gonna be, and then what color it's gonna be. Like the order of it doesn't matter. You can type however you want. We chose 1 pixel. We chose a solid border, and we chose the color black for it, right? And we can just add borders to, or in this case, our classes or hrefs as well. So if you want to add the border to our hrefs or headings, we can do that as well, just by going, border 1 pixel again, solid again. We can just make it dotted if you wanted to as well, but we're gonna go solid, and we're gonna go for the color black again, and we're gonna save that, and we're gonna copy that, do it for all of our headings. And we could have just chose h3 and then added the border property to that, but yeah, you could have done that, and it would have taken less time. So that's something to keep in mind as well. But anyways, so here I want to add some border to our, hold on, yeah, so I want to add some border to our paragraphs as well. Now let's make some changes here. Let's reduce our opacity and change the color for our div border to something else, like green, for example, and reload our page. And because it's 1 pixel, it's barely visible. I'm going to change that later on in video to make it 5 pixels, so it's a little bit easier to see. But yeah, so let's add some margin to our divs, so there's some space between them, so it's easier to see our borders. Like margin 30 should be good enough here. So now our divs, are separated from one another. They're not going into one another. And let's change this color a little bit as well. Just mess around with some of the opacity stuff, and go 5 pixels. So now we have a much more clear and visible border around our div, and then a smaller border around our paragraphs and our headings. Okay, so first of all, I want to thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. And now I'm going to give you some exercises that you can do on your own. So first of all, I want you to go ahead and make the site that we just made in this video, but make it with less CSS. Find ways by using your IDs and classes to make it where there's just less lines of code in our CSS, right? And then after that, you want to come over here to this page on. I'm going to leave the link first in the description as well, of course. But I want you to go ahead and make a tribute page, right? So make a tribute page, and if you click over here, you can see some examples of tribute pages as well, right? But basically, you just want to make a very basic tribute page. You can make it for whoever you want. You don't have to make it for the people that are in these examples right here, right? But just make a very basic tribute page with very basic HTML and some text lines, some borders, some background color, all that stuff, margin. Nothing too complicated, with some basic CSS. And yeah, just do this on your own. And if you get lost or don't understand something, you can just look at the code right here and see how you can make it, and you can emulate it. But I would say that try to make it on your own. If you get stuck, then try to look at the code. And if you don't understand anything in here, you can just go and look it up online, or watch my upcoming videos where I will be talking about everything HTML and CSS related.